That's a story. I know. Well, that's the way it is.
Five.
May is the day, but they come Friday morning, and so we have to clean up. I would pick up. How come I didn't pop out today over there? That's the story.
Freeze is on. Did you put freeze on?
We are live streaming.
Live?
Yeah, it's happening over there, but not over here.
Am I in the way?
No, you're absolutely fine.
Hello, my start.
How are you doing? Maybe pop the camera.
The camera's on, so it's just not showing here. I'll share my screen in the next few times.
Is that all?
Oh, no.
That's all we can. It says, and we have fun. What is that? Hollow. We have a corner. Hollow.
No,
What is freeze? Oh, round ball. I know.
I'm gonna see if I can share, make sure that it works.
Okay.
It worked a minute ago, so,
We live it.
but we are.
We're ready. Okay, everybody. So good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to the Children's Services Council meeting. Today is October the 19th. And the time is now 4:03 p.m. And I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. To our members of the audience, I am so excited to see all of you here today. There are multiple opportunities for you to make public comment during the meeting, and you will see that on the agenda. If you do want to make a public comment, please see Ms. Clay over in the lovely pink shirt, and she has the comment cards. So if you want to make a comment, you have to complete one of the comment cards, and please make sure that Ms. Clay has it. So thank you all for that. Since we do have a lot of people, we will adhere to our 3-minute comment period. So we have a lovely timer once you start, just to make sure we have ample time for everybody to be able to speak. Okay, all right, thank you. And to our council members, to keep us orderly and to ensure that we manage this meeting efficiently. If you do want to comment, I'm reminding you to please hold up your chat. And as I see them, I will call on each of you. Okay, with that, Ms. Clay, will you please do a roll call for me?
Yes. Mr. Watts,
Here.
Mr. Mitchell,
Here.
Commissioner Cummings,
Here.
Mr. Hannah,
Here.
Mr. Jones, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Miller, Dr. Glenn.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started. All right, it is time for us to approve the agenda. Now, before I take a motion, there are 2 changes to the agenda I want to point out. In section 8, we were going to have a discussion about the strategic planning meeting that we had and the impact areas of focus. However, since we only have 5 people here, I would like for that discussion to happen when we have a broader group. So Sika will do a quick summary of that, but we won't go into the discussion, and we're going to save that for our next meeting. Okay, so that's for that. And then on section number 12, the next meeting agenda, there's going to be a brief discussion about the next meeting dates, because we are proposing some changes to our meeting dates. So I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that change in the agenda. So with those 2 changes, are there any other changes to the agenda that any of you would like for us to entertain at this time? If not, I'll take a motion.
Sarah, I will move the agenda with the 2 changes you mentioned.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Mr. Mitchell, a second by Mr. Watts. Are there any oppositions at all? No. All right, so the agenda is now approved. Thank you very much. All right, it is now time for general public comment. Ms. Clay, do you have any comment cards?
Yes. I have general public comment from Detective Kelly.
Welcome.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Detective Nick Kelly. I've been with the Sheriff's Office, Atlanta County, for just over 6 years. 3 of those years was in school resource, dealing with kids on a daily basis. I'm currently a detective for the past 2023 year, working violent crimes and special victims, which involves a lot of children. I wanted to make a comment known that I'm for the bridge funding for CAC. I understand when they go through the CPT, when they've experienced trauma and they are being interviewed and questioned about an experience, and especially when it comes to a law enforcement case, these kids need additional resources after the fact, need additional therapy, counseling, and anything that could help them after these traumatic experiences. And we work closely with the families, but having those additional fundings and resources available for them, I think is very valuable. So,
Thank you very much, Detective Kelly. Appreciate that. Ms. Clay.
And next public comment, Ms. Jackie Vanderberg Gonson.
Let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jackie Sander-Ferguson, and I'm currently the incident coordinator for the Child Protection Team here in Tallahassee. has been with the Child Protection Team organization throughout the state of Florida since 1984. And in January of this year, I came to the Child Protection Team here in Tallahassee as the team coordinator once the University of Florida was awarded the contract for the Child Protection Team, CPT. So at the Child Protection Team, what we do is we provide various services for children who are alleged victims of abuse and neglect. The services that we provide include forensic interviewing, specialized interviewing with other children, specialized interviewing with non-offender caregivers, specialized interviewing with some offenders, with some alleged offenders. We also provide psychological evaluation, social assessments, medical exams, and we also do acute sexual assault rape kits in the case of acute sexual assaults. After the children are seen by our Child Protection Team and we provide those services that are deemed appropriate, then we refer to the Children's Advocacy Center for advocacy and for counseling services when it is necessary. So even though the two agencies are no longer together under one umbrella, or they have separated as far as agencies since January of this year, we do, after we provide these services, we do refer to the Children's Advocacy Center for advocacy and for counseling services. All the other services we provide. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you.
Ma'am, are you going to be here at that time in the meeting where, okay.
It's fine.
There's no more public comment.
No other public comments. All right, so thank you all for those public comments. Okay, it is now time for us to approve the consent agenda. I hope all of you have had an opportunity to review it. It includes the minutes from our September 14th meeting, the minutes from both TRIM hearings 1 and 2, the financials for September of 2023, and then also Ms. Green's Executive Director's report. So if there are no other items to remove or any future discussion items, I would like to entertain approving the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I will move the consent agenda.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Mitchell, a second from Mr. Watts. Any opposition at all? Okay, so the consent agenda is now approved. All right, it is now time for the General Counsel's update. And as you all can see, Mr. Rowe is not here. He is unfortunately ill. So we are going to ask Ms. Green to please provide the General Counsel.
Thank you, Chair Glenn. So yes, our General Counsel is under the weather, as is the whole family, and it's best for them to stay home. So as the October meeting also serves as our annual meeting, and that means that we should do our review of public records, sunshine law, parliamentary procedures as well. So you all received the memo on public records and sunshine. Just a reminder that even as a special district, we are subject to the public records law as well as government in the sunshine. So we are very thankful. We have an ample general counsel that makes sure we stay on track with that, and an even more ampler, if that's a word, staff to ensure that we are noticing our meetings properly, trying to get our materials out there in enough time, and honoring any public records requests that come through. If you ever have any questions, all you have to do is see General Rowe, or you can give me a call. So that's really it. I provided all of you with the memo that I received, which all of you received, just to give you a quick snapshot on that for sunshine and public records. The last thing is I provided the board with board effect, which is just an overview of Robert's Rules of Order. That is what governs us according to our bylaws. If you have any questions, you can see me, or you can see Mr. Rowe as well. And that sums up the sunshine laws, record laws, as well as parliamentary procedures.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Ms. Green with regards to the General Counsel's update? Okay, thank you very much for covering that for me.
Madam Chair, the last item on that particular section is the executive director's evaluation schedule.
Yes.
See, it could probably be a little awkward for you to.
I can tell you what he's gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah, so although he is sick, he is going to email that schedule and instrument to each of the board members.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And thank you for pointing that out. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move forward. We're being efficient here. All right, it is time for us to review the committee assignments. And if you all look at page 16 in your packets, you will see a copy of all of the committee assignments. Now, before we talk about these committee assignments, there are a couple of things that I want to share. All right, in accordance with Article 4, Section 4 of our bylaws, council committees must be reviewed each year to determine committee composition and the need for these committees. You will see those committee assignments that are on page 16. And the committee assignments that are summarized are the executive committee, the finance and budget committee, the nominating committee, the bylaws committee, and the program services committee. Now, currently, there are a couple of things that we need to consider as we have our conversation today. We need to add at least 2 council members to our bylaws committee. So we're hoping that we will be able to manage that today. We also need to determine whether or not we're going to continue the program services committee, because we've had a lot of discussion and conversation about who needs to be informed about what. And, you know, a lot of the council members were felt left out of some of those conversations that were important for us to make some decisions. So one of the things that we will have to consider is if we do decide to bring the program services committee discussion to the full council, which is on the table. And what we will do is bi-monthly, and you know, as we talk about the committee meetings or the council meetings, you'll get to hear that. We're proposing going to every other month for the council meetings, but then also having an opportunity for the program services committee to meet as a full group. So that will include all of us in those conversations, those very important conversations. So there will not be the need for a separate committee meeting to happen. So I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that. When we go to discussion, we can discuss that in more details, but I wanted to let you all know that that's a proposal that's on the table, or something that we've been discussing with staff of the possibility. So we need to decide, do we want to keep that as a separate committee, or do we want to engage the full council in those discussions, which will include all of us as a part of that committee. I hope that's clear. Okay. All right. A couple other things, and I'll open it up for discussion. Also, in our bylaws, in section 4, letter D, it allows for people that are not on the council to serve on the committees. And currently, we don't have any people that do not serve on the council to be on those committees. So that's something we need to discuss to determine if that's something that we want to do. Also, let's see. Okay, before we go into discussion, we would consider the feasibility of these committees meeting once a quarter. So I know that we were meeting with these committees every single month. And I think that, you know, we would like to discuss if it's feasible for us to have these committee meetings once a quarter, as opposed to meeting every single month as a part of the schedule. And if there is a need for another committee meeting, you know, before the quarter is over, then we can go ahead and schedule that. But I just wanted to see if that's something that we would consider, having quarterly committee meetings on the schedule with the ability to call ad hoc committee meetings. So I wanted us to discuss that also. Then last but not least, if you look at page 16, you will notice that I am on every single committee. And so I would love to politely nominate myself to be removed from some of these committees, from at least 2 of them. And that's why I am advocating for us as a program services, as a team, a full council to meet as a full program services group. That will eliminate the need for a separate program services committee. And then I would like to volunteer to be removed from the bylaws committee, and not to leave you alone, Mr. Watts, but hopefully we'll get some additional individuals to serve on that. So I just wanted to point that out and make sure everybody's clear of my intentions of trimming my participation down in some of these. So with that, I'm going to stop, and we are now open up for discussion with regards to the committees. Mr. Watts, I'll start with you.
It should be.
Yes.
You can't get off of the bylaws or executive.
No, I have to be on the executive.
Yes,
committee.
you had to stay on both of them.
Do I have to be on the bylaws committee?
Yeah, so, okay, but here's just one of my questions. The bylaws committee, can the bylaws committee not somehow be, okay, first of all, we switched the executive to core.
That's the plan. That's
And
right.
that,
We basically did, we just
Right.
haven't had a reason to meet again until it's time for,
And that has
Yeah.
worked.
It does.
Beautifully.
Right.
Beautifully.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm wondering, can that somehow bylaws be weaved into the executive committee?
so if I might,
Please, go
Madam
ahead.
Chair.
I would love it.
So the thought, and we might as well talk about it now since we're talking about, it. So the thought was, moving. So Chair Glenn asked me to look at our schedule and see if there was a way we could reduce the number of meetings we were having. And so after talking with staff, we determined that we could get rid of 4 council meetings. And that would have the council meeting twice a quarter. So it would be the October meeting, then a December meeting, January meeting, March meeting, April meeting, June meeting, July meeting, September meeting. And what that does is it removes that middle meeting out and allows for committees to each meet once a quarter as needed. So what we're hoping is that it frees up your schedule a little bit more. And since we have gotten into this groove of how we're doing our procurements and all of that, we give staff time to really get the work done. Bylaws really only needs to meet once a year, to be very honest, to look through the bylaws, make sure that they are congruent with the way we are doing business. And then after that, it's only called when it needs to be. So if you all want to roll the bylaws committee into the executive committee, it would be a bylaw change. And so now would be the time to determine that. The bylaws committee would meet during this quarter, so sometime before December, the bylaws committee would meet to recommend any changes to the bylaws, and it would take effect once this council ratifies that in December. I know I said a lot.
No,
Does
it's
that
fine.
make sense?
It makes
Okay.
sense. I don't know, anybody else's opinion, but I think some of the things that we discussed in the executive committee bylaws could technically move into that, but that's just my opinion. And I just have one more question about the program services committee.
Sure.
Because I remember that conversation. So we have not had any community members ever serve on the program services committee? Okay,
None of our committees.
okay.
And the bylaws gives you the opportunity to add community members to committees, whichever committees. The only committee they can't be added to would be executive, because the bylaw states that the executive committee contains the officers of the board. But you can choose to make those appointments if you choose to any of those committees.
The program services committee, if we migrated over to, I think the option was to remove that and just have the council responsible for that, right?
So can I give you one more
Yeah.
caveat?
Mhm.
So the thought was, so the original discussion was moving to every other month for full council meetings and make the off month a programming workshop. That doesn't help with the meeting piece. You understand what I'm saying? That doesn't help with that. So what we think is that if we go to 2 meetings per quarter, we would make sure that most of the business is in one of those meetings. The other meeting would be concentrated on doing just what you did during strategic planning, looking at programming, looking at what we've done, looking at what we funded, having different providers come and talk to us, matching that up with the needs assessment so that it gives us marching orders moving forward. So with that, any proposals are coming to the full council versus going to a smaller program services meeting, which I think you would agree that last year when we did that, it really caused more confusion in the sense that everyone did not know the information. And what we want to do is we want to make it such that the whole council has all the information at the same time, so that when you're making that decision, you're making an informed decision.
I would be in favor of that option just based on the experience from last time. If you sent something to the program service committee, but if someone couldn't make it and then it was being brought and we were ready to vote, it was still coming before us anyway. So I would.
Okay, absolutely. So I'm gonna do Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Cummings, and then Mr. Hannah. But before we go there, I just want to say one thing that I would like for us to consider as we go to the October, December meetings, those will be together. We would have like a full October meeting. The December meeting we could still have a shortened council meeting to discuss any business that needs to be handled, but then the vast majority of the rest of our time together would be dedicated to the program services workshop. So we're still meeting twice, but the second meeting is most, the program services. So that's for consideration. All right, Mr. Mitchell, go ahead. I see your eye,
No, no.
your brow.
No, it's, the brow
Okay.
is just confusion,
Okay.
not disappointment or a lack of agreement. I love the idea of having a meeting where we focus on programs and where we invite members of the community in to not talk to us for 3 minutes, because I find that completely inadequate. To me, the people who come to us make me smarter. And that is, as a guy who's gonna vote, I like more knowledge. So I like the idea of having one meeting, focus in on programs and not just programs, but the people are coming with the knowledge. I mean, I go back to the Mimi Graham presentation. That was program services, right? And I'm gonna use Mimi because she's not here. But I could have sat there and listened to her for 3 hours and gotten an awful lot of use out of her knowledge. And so I am all for eliminating business meetings once every 2 months, once every 3 months. I don't, that part doesn't bother me at all. Certainly the executive committee, I was much as I love spending time with the two of you, I am A-okay doing that on a quarterly basis. But shortening the business meetings and extending the program services and invite the public in to talk to us about what do they see that we're doing well, what do they see we're not doing well, and also have a specific person with that expertise who comes and gives us not a lecture, but an
And
informative.
that's exactly what would happen because with the shortened council meeting, then it becomes a workshop and the structure of those discussions are different. So we can have conversations and more long, dialogue with experts on a particular topic that we're discussing.
Okay.
And then that just, like you said, makes us smarter.
So the brow furrow
Yes.
in this is directed at our executive director. Ms. Green, when you went through the months, I was like, what? So we're essentially having a 3 month.
4.
So,
February.
so remember we have SIPs and our SIPs program has to be approved at the end of every quarter.
Right.
So that means we have to have, so I like to start with the fiscal year. So that means we have to have December, March,
December, okay.
June, September.
Got
We
it.
have to have those.
Okay. As our business meetings.
I am actually gonna flip that.
Okay.
Yes, as our business, you're right.
Okay.
And then the first meeting, so October, January.
A pause there. There would be nothing that would prohibit us, though, from approving SIPs and approving other funding.
And then we're having discussion.
So it's
After
almost like a business meeting once a quarter.
And more of a workshop.
Program services once a quarter. That's not the same month. That also includes
And committees.
a committee on the other month. So
No.
if needed.
I would say not the other month.
Right.
I would say in one of the other 2 months.
During the times that we have scheduled meetings, so that when we have an off month, it's an off month.
Boom. All right.
Okay.
So that there is literally time.
See the brow no longer.
The browse, yeah, it's clear. Okay, all right, thank you for that. Ms. Cummings, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank staff for, I take it staff, this recommendation, because you all work day to day. You see us month after month of grappling with what we have to do with our funding and with our service providers. In the off month, we are still meeting from what you all just discussed.
No,
Program services, we're still meeting, that committee?
no, ma'am. No, ma'am. So look at the combination. So for October and December, For October, it'll be a full council meeting. The December
Okay,
meeting,
okay, this is October now.
Right.
Full meeting.
full council meeting. Then so we'll be off in November, completely off in November. And in December, the December meeting will be a very abbreviated council meeting. And then the vast majority of that meeting will be the program services workshop. And then if we have any committee meetings, we can meet either in October or December, but November will be completely off.
Okay, so based on that calculation, we're looking at least 6 full council meetings per year. At least 6.
Well, technically, four. Technically, it's four.
So it's not every other month.
No. So it's 2 meetings a quarter.
Oh, a quarter,
2
okay.
meetings a quarter, starting in October. Now let me say, this quarter is gonna be a little hinky because we have a lot of business we need to take care of in December just by the nature of the way things fell. But ideally, we would have an October meeting, which is also our annual meeting. We would skip November, have the December meeting. Then we come back and have a January meeting and then a March meeting. Then we come back and have an April meeting and then a June meeting, then a July meeting and a September meeting. So you will have there will be back-to-back meetings, but you get that middle month off.
Okay.
And then the quarterly meetings, and so the recommendation is that the committees meet quarterly if they need to. The idea is that the quarterly meeting needs to at least take place before the last meeting of the quarter. So in this case, we need to have committees meet before the December meeting, because the December meeting is when you're going to ratify whatever happens in those committees. With this structure, you will sunset the Program Services Committee, because now the entire council serves as the reviewers of whatever programming we bring. And now you have more times. So when we go through the exercise with strategic planning and you decide what your impact area is, the very first thing we're going to do as staff is find those community providers, community members to come and talk with you about what they see the need is, matching that up with the needs assessment, then figuring out what programs we're going to procure. So there's a lot more time for you to contemplate the work that you're doing rather than trying to put agendas together and get meetings out.
So is that the same concept as having community people on the committee as committee members?
No, that's totally
Having
different.
somebody coming in, speaking to us.
The
Okay, so-
speakers are your presenters.
Okay,
So it's kind of like with the commission, you guys do a workshop and you have people speaking.
right.
No, the committees themselves, you all can decide whether you want to have community members serve on those committees. You can decide how many, you can decide if you want to let staff determine how we do that. We could come up with a process, but I just thought it prudent that you have it in the bylaws and it hasn't been discussed over the last year.
Well, I
And it
like
does-
that concept.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be every committee.
Mhm.
It can be whatever you guys decide.
But when is this proposal supposedly, when would it be effective? Are we talking about?
So I might as well get to the last one on the agenda.
Okay, please.
So the thought would be, according to the bylaws, the chair can cancel any meeting that it is determined is not needed. So the thought would be Chair Glenn would cancel the November meeting, which allows the bylaws committee to meet, take what happens at this meeting, do a revision of the bylaws. That committee report would come back to you in December for you to ratify. Once you ratify it, then the new structure is in place.
So we're talking about if we, at a minimum.
Is it as clear as mud?
Adopt the concept today,
Right,
then the November meeting is canceled.
right,
We would have to come back in
In
December.
December,
right.
Okay,
And then this new schedule, as we see it, will start in January.
oh, okay. And I don't have a problem with collapsing the Program Services Committee into the council, because a couple of times the Program Services Committee brought recommendations back to us. And, you know, we pretty much scrutinized it anyway and added our own whatever and changed the recommendations and what have you. They did a whole lot of work on a couple of different initiatives. So I think that's a good idea. And I'm sure staff recognize that. So overall, conceptually, I don't have a problem.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hannah,
So twice a quarter is 8 meetings a year, correct?
Right.
Well, I don't understand why today we couldn't merge the bylaws committee with the executive committee. Why does the bylaws committee have to meet to amend the bylaws? Can't we just do that today?
The bylaws committee has to, because of the way the bylaws are written, the bylaws committee has to bring you the recommendations for augmenting the bylaws.
it's a process.
It's a private.
So today so as an example, we could not say we're getting rid of the program services.
Yeah, you're saying that today.
No, but does the bylaws committee have to approve that too?
They have to bring the recommendation back for December.
And then we vote on December.
Right. I'm not until we're up and running and we have what I consider program. Once we have programs going and we have accomplished our goal, I would pull back. I think we can pull back on meetings. I'm not in favor of pulling back on meetings until we are in a position where we've done a lot more work than just summer money. So
might I offer so I've been doing this for almost 2 years. And what I'm finding is that we spend more time trying to put packets together and make sure that it's noticed in the 7 days for these monthly meetings than we do really getting into the work. And so that is why giving us that one meeting in the middle of the quarter allows us to do more work on your behalf and line our ducks up and get with our community members. Right now, we are literally working 80, we're going all night into the next day, and that's every one of us. So I think that we can't look at where the program is going until we finish the strategic planning. We have the ITN out for FRC. Today, you will look at summer. In December, you will come back and make decisions about the ITN, and we'll have the discussion about where your strategic focus is going to be. We can't do any programming until we know where your strategic focus is going to be. So I don't think getting rid of that meeting, with all due respect, Superintendent Handel, I don't think it is going to hamper us. What I think it will do is make us be more efficient. And if I am wrong, absolutely, I will take the fall.
Hannah?
I feel like we've done this exercise before 2 years ago. And we've had the needs assessment and we've been down this. Now we're going back to revisit the strategic planning of where our priorities are. For me, it's a second time. Maybe no one else feels that way. I'm struggling with, we went through this exercise once. We had a needs assessment. We've been talking the talk and I just growing anxious.
May I add one thing?
Yeah.
So you're right. But when we were so let's go back to the high quality early learning. That was the discussion we were trying to have. And we worked on that for 5 meetings, 5 months. And every time we brought it back, there were lots of questions that were going on. And that's why we could never land at a program that we would do. So I think a lot of that wasn't necessarily revisiting, but it was this council kind of forming and storming and norming and wanting to make the right decision and not make the right decision. And we had ARPA money thrown up in there. So I don't know that it was not doing the programming more than we were brand new trying to figure it all out and not wanting to make a mistake. I don't think it's that we're revisiting the strategic plan. I think what we're trying to do is focus in on where you guys want to go. So we had the exercise. We think we know where you want to land. And that gives us the direction to again come back to you with some programming options. And if you don't like those, we'll continue to come back. But what I can tell you is, as the executive of this organization, if we don't get a break, August was the best thing for us because it gave us a chance to put that strategic planning piece together, to really hone in on what we were doing for summer, to look at our reporting. I am just afraid that we're going to burn out. And I will tell you, most Children's Services Council, after they get that first going, they aren't meeting every month. Some of them are meeting once a quarter. Some of them are meeting every other month and using the off month just to do the work. So,
And I agree with that. Once we have once the money is out there and the programs are up and running, yeah. To me, that's the heavy lift. Then it's just monitoring what actions are happening or what's going on, and getting reports back from those organizations that are doing the work. But until that happens,
Rocky, I do want to say that we have gone through 2 strategic planning sessions. And I think the first one, the first time we met downtown, I think we were just pulling, we needed to decide, how do we narrow this down from, the sky's the limit. Like, there's so many different things that we can do. And we ended that conversation with 7 priority areas. And then we came back and we tried to implement that. And you know how that was. It was
we
just,
ended with less than 7, and then the program services committee added some more after.
well, we ended that conversation with 7 priority areas, and the staff did go back and try to implement, how are we going to make this happen? When we realized that we need to narrow down a little bit more, which is what we decided, that's how we landed back here at the end of September. And I think that having that conversation really helped us focus from the 7, here's more now. I do think the heavy lift has been done. I'm not saying it's completely over, but I do think we've given them some really good direction of where they need to go. I don't feel as if we haven't gotten a really good start as to where we want to go. And I do think, personally, I do think they need the opportunity to do the work, because they are carried throughout the month trying to get everything together. And if they're, and I'm not going to say wasting time, but spending time typing this up and putting together packages, they're not doing what I need them to do, which is really make sure that they're bringing us really quality programs that we can vote on. And that's why I would like to give them the opportunity. And I do think it still gives us plenty of face time to make some decisions. So just share my thoughts. Okay, Mr. Mitchell.
So one of the reasons that I always greet Mr. Hanna with, how is my favorite superintendent, is he is my favorite superintendent. And I'll tell you why. He never loses focus on sort of what his jobs are, his job as a constitutional officer of the county, but also his role statutorily on this council. And I shared with the superintendent, my favorite superintendent, the sentiment that he spoke of a couple of meetings ago of, we have to focus, we have to do something. Let's move this, right? So I share that. The meeting in our jammies, the Saturday meeting, right? Which we were not in our jammies, I just that Saturday meeting, unlike the first strategic meeting that was seemingly all over the place, I left there feeling good that we were focused, Superintendent, that the staff had no question as to where this council wants to go. And it is no longer an inch deep and a mile wide, but rather just the opposite, a mile deep and an inch wide. We cannot do everything. We can only do so much. $9 million seems like an awful lot, and it's incredibly generous of the property owners of Leon County to share that with us. But it is not that much. And so I applaud what the superintendent's saying, and here's what I would like to suggest. One, I'm okay with the 8 meetings, knowing that if we aren't accomplishing something, I will join the superintendent in asking that an additional meeting be added.
I think we all will.
Right, oh, I know, I know. The second thing I just want to make certain of is there is a component that we should never forget, and that's, how do we pay for these things? I want to make sure that, and I'm okay having a separate finance committee meeting that falls outside of whatever schedule this is. But we have to bring the budget that produces our request for the millage rate. All of that still has to be tucked into this. So as long as that's, we're contemplating the budgetary side of it, and I don't mean the monthly finance, I mean the budget. Then I'm full, and superintendent, I will join you in requesting of the chair additional meetings.
And I do want to, and I said this before, but it wasn't forcefully. I do want to leave the option open that as needed, if additional meetings are needed. So let's say we get into a conversation, we realize that we need to address the budget to be able to be in alignment with what we need to do. The bylaws, the bylaw committee member, I want to make sure that it's open such that we can call ad hoc meetings as necessary. The bylaws won't state we will only meet these 8 times. It is still open for the necessity, any additional meetings that need to be called to address items.
And Madam Chair, one final thing, and this will help me as just one council member focus and understand always what I'm voting on. The idea of taking the Program Services Committee and combining it with a discussion, a public discussion of an initiative that we might be pursuing. I think of that March 23rd meeting at Pineview Elementary, where the Family Resource Center came up, and I sat there. I knew everybody else seemingly understood it. I didn't. And I asked that question. The way you've broken it down,
Eliminate that.
I would not have that question. And if I did, shame on me. It just means I'm not listening, which I've been known to do. So I really do like the focus. Again, we have 4 months where we won't have a meeting, but we could have a meeting.
Absolutely. And going back to the conversation around the Program Services Committee, I realized that by having some of these conversations, things that were vetted and discussed during the Program Services Committee, those of you that weren't on that committee had no idea what was going on. And then you all came back and we were asking y'all to vote on something and you didn't hear the conversation. And I remember sitting here thinking, I understand why that's not fair to you all because y'all weren't privy to the conversation. By bringing those discussions to the full group, everybody hears everything. And therefore, when it's time for us to vote, you're not trying to figure out what's been discussed, who did y'all talk to, what does this mean? Everybody's been a part of that dialogue. So hopefully this process will eliminate that. Okay.
And finally, if I could,
Yes.
Madam Chair, so the bylaws committee is going to meet to bring a recommendation to change the bylaws.
Correct.
That the bylaws committee is merged with the executive committee, and the program services committee is.
It goes away.
It goes away. And as far as the finance and budget committee, do there have to be 4 members on there, or can you fall off and there only be 3 members, or is that in the bylaws, there's 4 members?
I would, I would, well, right, but I would say, again, I want to be sensitive to your time,
Sure.
but as the treasurer, I want the chair on
All
there.
right, so.
And I would want to be on the
Okay,
finance.
Yeah,
committee
I've
and the
never known,
chair.
but so we would leave that committee as is.
Correct. And the executive committee.
And the nominations.
Finance committee, right, and the nominations committee.
Okay, and the bylaw, so program services go away, bylaws goes to exec, so then there's just 3 committees.
Correct.
Executive, nominations, finance.
4.
What's the 4th one?
Oh, bylaws becomes executive. You're right. Okay, I see
So
it.
3
Okay,
committees, all right.
correct, right. Okay, so then that eliminates a 1-member bylaws committee member.
That's the idea, right, member.
That gets merged into it. Okay, so now here's my question for you. Do we have to vote on this now or do we vote on this after the bylaws committee meets?
Yeah, it's
and
a
brings recommendation.
It's a recommendation,
Okay.
so you guys don't have to approve the recommendation. We'll
Okay.
do a quick bylaws meeting,
Okay.
put those recommendations together and bring them back in December. I'm looking at superintendent. I'm looking at.
So, Madam Chair.
Well, we can close this meeting, and y'all can meet real quick. There's only 2 of y'all on it.
Very good point. Very good.
Anybody in
the room want to be on the bylaws committee?
Ms. Cummings has the floor.
No, I just want to just reiterate that we're listening to staff about their needs, but my other concern is that the Program Services Committee Chair is not here. And if I would certainly like to get his input because I know that committee worked very, very hard
Absolutely.
and brought, recommendations to us this last year. So if we're just doing a recommendation today, I don't have a problem. what bylaws, look at it, bring it back, and then perhaps
Sure.
at our next meeting, but we can today suspend the November meeting. We have
That's
authority
fine.
to do that, so I don't have a problem with that, but I would just, I don't want to slide our program services committee chair when he's not.
Absolutely. Now, Ms. Green has spoken to.
I have,
Yeah.
Okay,
I've spoken with him and he is in favor of that.
okay, but I wanted to say.
But you will say it at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
in the sunshine.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm not supposed to government.
All right, so as of right now, the bylaws committee will convene very shortly. And my intent is at the end of this meeting to cancel the November meeting, and then we will convene in December to vote on the recommendations brought forward by the bylaws committee.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'll be sending out
Okay, I don't want to,
pages.
just to make sure so we can get. Right. Are we, as far as people from the community,
That's
Yeah.
was gonna be the next thing after you finish
Oh,
this,
okay.
y'all need to decide how you
Okay.
wanna, if you wanna, you don't have to exercise it, but.
Yeah. So with our three committees, with the executive and bylaws merged committee, do we want to have a community member on that committee?
can I? Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You can't, not executive.
All right.
I'm not in favor of that.
Okay, all right,
On
then
any
no. So
If we're going down to 3, I think we just,
keep the
And
executive
we're
committee.
gonna
and you're
continue.
gonna, and you're about to add 2 more board members at some point, the governor, right?
Yeah, which is my, under open discussion, but we also need to do, I think, continue to beat the drum and ask, as long as we have a full house here, community members to offer up their name to sit on evaluation committees. And that to me is really where the community can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I agree. So are you proposing, because I'm not opposed to this, Mr. Mitchell, are you proposing that we leave our committees with the council members, but really work hard to get more community
Yes.
members as evaluators?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've done, just so you know, I've sent emails far and wide to anybody I could think of. I mean like, just people who are residents of Leon County. Was I, yeah.
Okay, she's reminding me of the time. Okay, we do need to move forward. All right, so that is a recommendation, and that is, I guess the bylaws committee can bring that as a recommendation, unless there's, no, we don't have to. Okay,
You guys,
We've already
I
made a
just brought it
decision.
up because it's in the bylaw.
all right. Is anybody opposed to that? Are you opposed to that, Ms.
No,
Cummings?
not
You're not opposed to that? Okay. Are you opposed? You made it. You're opposed to that? Okay. Are you opposed to that, Mr. Hannah?
No, he suggested.
I thought,
I was sort of seconding,
Okay.
my favorite superintendent.
Mr. Watt, are you opposed
Yeah,
to that?
no.
You're good with that? All right, so
We
then
are.
we move forward. Okay, thank you very much.
Our marching orders.
All right, so staff, thank you very much for bringing that forward. Okay, it is now time, agenda item number 8, a brief review
Very.
of our strategic planning meeting.
Thank you so much. So as the chair said, we're gonna wait on doing the rest of the exercises to hone in on your focus, although we think we know where it is, because we're missing 3 members. We had a great, I think, strategic planning meeting on the 30th. And if you turn to page 18, you will just see a recap of some action steps that came out of that meeting and who the recommended leads are. So staff will put up the proposed timeline. Some of this we've actually already done. And then our expectation is that in December, we will try to get through the business things very quickly so we can do that discussion, hone in on that, look at this, and then be ready to go in January.
Thank you very much. And this, so I apologize that we did make a decision at our meeting that we did want to start the beginning of all of our meetings focusing on our theory of change, and I neglected to do it at the beginning of this meeting, and I wrote a note so that I would not forget it, and I still forgot it. So anyway, just reminding you, I do thank the staff for putting these placemats in front of us, and our theory of change is still on the wall. So for those of you that are here, just to remind you all that these are the 3 areas of focus of this county, of this council. The work that we are doing are centered around improving the lives of children by improving their success in school life, by improving healthy children, youth, and families, and by ensuring stable, nurturing families and communities. So those are our three focus areas, and everything that we do should be centered around these. And we keep this in front of us now to remind us of that as we go down these different rabbit holes and different conversations. But I just wanted to share that with you all.
Oh, Chair Glenn, one last thing. So I'm sure you guys are wondering what all these little characters are. So we did personality tests and we did the otter, beaver, retriever, lion. And so that's what all these little characters are, to remind all of us what we are and how we can better kind of communicate and work with each other. So that's why we have
Thank you.
tigers and bears.
You need to go through that exercise there, Director Green.
I did. I'm a lion.
Oh, you are?
I didn't
Okay, good.
wear my
So you
band,
did
but
lion.
I actually was even. So I was even 33, 33, 33, lion, beaver, otter. I'm not kidding you. No retriever.
Which one are you now? You have 3 persons.
I think right now it's kind of lionish.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on. We're 4:53. Okay, agenda item number 9, the 2023 Summer Bridge Program Summary Funding. Ms. Green.
Yes, I will go through this. So we have a PowerPoint, and council members, you have a handout. So again, we start with our theory of change. So you saw that. So I am really pleased to provide you with this 30,000-foot level update of our summer programming. You approved the disbursement of $1.692 million, and that went to 17 agencies. And that funding was from May 15th through August 30th. It covered 2 priority areas: stable and nurturing families and communities, and success in school and life. You approved $125,000 for summer feeding, and it touched 7,800 plus households, which was 405% over what was projected. And then under success in school and life, you approved $1.567 million for summer learning. We had 1,014 unduplicated children, and we hit 91% of our goal. Our goal was 93, or was it 90?
I mean, we didn't really technically set a goal
We
until
didn't set.
afterwards, but internally, we were, our goal was.
Which is always a
To get
good
to
time to set it.
93. We got to 90 with that.
Yeah, so now we're talking about that as we move into the
Right.
future, having proactive goals.
And you will see that in the RFA that comes before you, the draft RFA. So we provided 36 site visits, that monitoring and oversight or support sessions during the course of the contract. And we're finalizing the reconciliation of the expenditures to ensure that we're in compliance with our guidelines. Next slide. So I wanted to provide, we wanted to provide you with some quotes from parents that really puts it in perspective. So you can see there, this camp was amazing, and that was about the Citizens for a Sustainable Future. I love the opportunity for my children to socialize and grow and be productive members or creative minds, and amazing for Tallahassee Nights Live Foundation. So we know that our parents were very, very satisfied. So when we look at feeding, we were able to touch 01, 03, 04, 05, and 10. You can see the number of events there. You can see the pounds of food. So with 44 events, 352 plus thousand pounds of food equaling 293,000 meals, and we touched 7,800 plus households. So that is amazing in a word. And then there were some questions that were asked for the summer feeding. And so how often do the meals or the food you receive from the summer help you afford other items in your household, such as your rent, your mortgage, utilities, medical? And you can see there that 51.7% of those who received these services said that it helped them to be able to handle other bills and things in their house. And that is amazing. So more than 50% of the people we helped were able to use that money for something else. So in addition to all the meals that Second Harvest distributed, the summer learning programs had feeding programs as well that came with their funding. 43,882 breakfasts, lunches, and dinners were served through those summer programs, 16 programs. So when you look at summer learning, we split it up into boys and girls and unknown. You'll see the majority of the children that were served were elementary, then middle, then high school, then other and unknown. Most were Black or African American, and most classified themselves as non-Hispanic. So when we talk about summer learning, we did 66.8% of the programs hit our targeted zip codes in that 01, 03, 05, 10, 7. We had a few that were other than Leon County, others that were in other zip codes, and then we had a couple that were not Leon, that 6.4%. Then we had 10.4% that we didn't know from where they came. So then when you break it down according to zip code, most of the children that were served were in the 32303 at 24.6%. And then you can see the other percentages that go around.
These are learning programs, not
Learning programs, that's a feeding learning programs. So then when we look at learning, we also want to give you some of the measurements that we took. So of our enrolled participants, we were looking at 90% or greater being enrolled. We got to 75%. For our consent to share, we wanted 95% or greater. We got to 88% of them. We had our children and youth, children and youth resiliency measure test, that pre-test. We wanted to get 95% of that test given or greater. We got to 50%. And then the post-test, we were trying to get to 80% or greater. We got to 56%. Then attendance at least 80% of the program days, we were trying to get to 70%. We almost hit it. We got to 69. And then the satisfaction survey response, we tried to get to 75%, we got to 50, and then very satisfied or 70 satisfied, we wanted 90% or greater, we had 100%. So that means 100% of our participants were satisfied or very satisfied with the programming they received. Next slide. So the next one was, how well did your child's summer program help prepare them for the next school year? We had 6.1 at fairly well, 29.8 at well, but extremely well, 62.9%. That means that we are headed in the right direction with our summer program. We got 2 more slides.
And these were parents' responses?
Parents' responses. 2 more slides. Please estimate how much you saved in childcare, camp fees, or other food by participating in the CSC funded summer learning. 45.5% saved $800 or more. That is a big, big deal. And then you can see the other percentages there. I'm going from $1 to $200, 201 to 400, 401 to 600, and then 601 to 800. So when we're doing this, we want to think about what is it that we want to do better. So when we talk about lessons learned, we wanted to look at some of the things that may have impacted why we didn't hit our target percentage. So staff turnover or staff shortage at the program didn't allow for the investment partners to draw down all of the allocated funding. So they may have requested and received funding for a certain number of staff persons, but because of turnover or just not being able to recruit the people, they weren't able to pull down all that funding. Some CIPs lacked fiscal management techniques that led to delays in processing expenditure approvals and disbursement. This goes back to capacity building. And that's why that piece is so important. Many of our nonprofits literally get money in and send money out and don't really look at how that money is being accounted for. Many community investment partners lack data management experience. They're just taking a role and not understanding why they should keep that role and being able to use a data management system to keep track of that. Better yet, they don't have one. So the first time they ever did it was using our system. And then many CIPs did not show a meaningful change between survey assessments. So the recommendation is to require a minimum length of stay, which you will see in this proposed RFA, and that's your duration and your dosage based on quality standards. So, with everything we do, every time we get better and better, and I'll use Councilmember Mitchell's email to me when I emailed you all to say that we had satisfied our trend, we had gotten our letter, and he emailed back to say each year gets better and better and better. So these are some of the lessons that we're taking into our next RFA for summer programming.
Thank you.
As you review this, if you have any questions, just let us know. Once we get the true final report done, we will have that published and available.
Awesome. I mean, I can say congratulations. We push for these summer programs and I think this is a testament that it works, benefits our children. I love the stats. We didn't quite make it on all of our expectations, but you know, we did a great try. So I think it's important that we engage our children. During the summer, we have to continue to do this, in my opinion. So congratulations to staff, to you all, and for gathering the statistics so that we can see that we did move the needle.
And I just want to acknowledge our staff because they worked really, really hard. Holly, Jacinta, Dina went home sick, but Dina, Stephanie, Prisha, God bless Dina, Prisha, and Stephanie. Because they were in it with these programs from the beginning. So
Thank you. All right. Mr. Mitchell.
Madam Chair, this comment, sort of question suggestion has as much to do with item 9 as it does with item 10. But one of the things that I heard, and I, like Commissioner Cummings, I think it's really important that we have services that we're providing to this community and kids during the summertime. One of the things that I have heard is that parents, two things, two negatives, a lot of positives, but two negatives. One, parents don't know about the programs early enough. And, you know, look, my kids are out of the house. But I remember I knew exactly where they were going to be in their summer, you know, every camp, usually by the end of December, definitely by February, no later than March. And so one of the things that people talked about was the sooner you can let us know as a parent, the better opportunity we have to get, you know, Johnny enrolled in it, which led into the second major comment that was, again, room for improvement. And that's letting people know of our summer services. And I know that there is a requirement in the RFA that those who receive funding are required to market their program. And this kind of blends into 10, where I want to go with the new RFA. And I hope my fellow council members will hear me out and agree with me on this. As a government organization, we qualify for PSA dollars that even not-for-profit private organization doesn't. That's number one. We can take whatever dollars that we are doling out to however many programs for marketing purposes, collapse them into one bucket. We now have a staffer whose job it is to reach out to the community who could organize this. So I think collapsing it into one bucket will give us a better bang for our buck, give us further reach, and probably will buy us more advertising than any of these individual vendors can do on their own. The second point that I'd like to make is when it comes to that is that let's say that I came to the CSC and I got $40,000 for a summer program to provide for football, flag football for kids for, you know, a couple of weeks. And I'm required to market that. Well, wherever I'm marketing it, let's say I buy a spot on the radio, or I'm hoping that I'm hitting parents who are interested in flag football. But if we collapse the bucket and we said, hey, we are the Children's Services Council, so people are hearing, oh, that's right, you funded them. Yes, you did. Thank you very much, to $9 million a year. So we're raising awareness of the Children's Services Council, and we offer loads of program for summer. please come and see our menu. We have things on STEM, we have things on performance arts, we have things on, phys ed, and you name it, you can get it from the Children's Services Council. Again, I don't think that we have the expertise in-house to handle that. I think better collapsing it into one bucket and removing that requirement from folks who really have an expertise in taking care of children and helping them develop into better young adults is the right way to go.
You want to comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We could absolutely do that. We now have another team member whose expertise is that. And so, yeah, I have no.
What I like about that is that it lets people know what the Children's Services Council is bringing forward. So we're not only marketing the programs, but we're marketing the services of the CSC. So I really do like that, and I'm very much in support of that. I guess my question to you is, do we need a separate budget line item for, are we dedicating dollars for the marketing of these summer programs that's different than the money that we have allocated for the summer programs?
I think as we, one, that thank you for your supportive comments, and two, the answer to your question, as we are putting this RFA, that's why I wanted to do it a little before we talked about the RFA and a little after we talked about the success of last summer. What I'd like to do is, there's a dedicated amount that each one is required to market. We can take the total amount and pull it back. So as we're putting this RFA out, before we vote on it, because we're not voting on it, today, what it exactly looks like.
We are.
Actually, we are.
Well, okay, wait. We're voting on, but no, we're not voting on funding anybody.
Right.
All I want to do is remove the requirement from the RFA that they market their own, recognizing that we will do it for them. Now, by the way, they can continue to market whatever they want. If you're marketing flag football and you're to young boys and girls between the ages of 5 and 9, and you're with a whole bunch of 5 to 9-year-olds who are interested in flag football, you can do individual marketing. I just mean countywide, letting residents know that their kids have opportunities for the summer, doing it early and giving them those opportunities so that the moms and dads know little Johnny will be at this camp on, June 4th through the 9th, whatever.
So my follow-up question is, so are you pulling money out of each individual funding opportunity that would have gone to marketing and pull that out? Or do we still let them market?
No, I would pull it out and collapse it all into
one bucket?
Right.
Okay.
Again, if they want to, with the money that's given to them, if they want to market, they can to show success, but.
Is our budget chair, is there an amount that you're thinking? Because I think we need to be consistent with each entity.
Yes, ma'am.
That we fund.
Yeah, and I don't know because I don't know
Oh,
what
okay.
proposals are gonna be.
I feel like that.
Sure.
Please. Okay, so you all approved, I think it was 1.7 for summer funding. So what we would do is we would use some of that 1.7 for the marketing. We just would take that out of their budget requirements. So so in their line item, they're not gonna do a line item for marketing. Now, they can do their own marketing, it just won't be charged to us. And then we will take a portion of the 1.7 and do our own marketing. In addition, we have a summer expo that happens in March, where they're required to participate in that. But to your point, it would come out of that 1.7. So you don't have to give us
an exact number. The other thing is, I would love a recommendation. This is not, I'm not, I don't sell radio ads, so I don't know how much we're talking about. I just know that it will do both the council a lot of good as well as increase knowledge and participation of the summer programs. And I am sure that, Holly, you and Marshall working together, can come up with a plan that you bring back to the council for approval. But I just think that, and, oh, by the way, please talk to the Broadcasters Association, and I forget all of the entities. I know when I was still in state government, we used to buy, and one, we got a lot of free time. And two, we got it at a dramatically reduced price. I assume it's afforded to a taxing authority and local governmental entity that's created by statute. I can't swear by that, but I would think that they would afford us some sort of a discounted rate.
Thank you for that. Sure. So I do want to formally wrap up the explanation about last summer's funding. So any other questions about that before we move into the RFA for this summer? And I know you got us a jump start on that, but any other questions with regards to? No? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, so thank you for that. Mr. Mitchell has started the conversation. So now that we had a summary of what happened last summer, it's time for us to begin the RFA process for this upcoming summer. So with that, I'm going to ask, I think we're starting with you. Okay.
Yep, I'll start us off. So you have the draft RFA in front of you, taking the comments that Mr. Mitchell said, we will make that adjustment as well. You will see several differences in this one, but I am going to turn it over to Holly, our procurement manager. She acts in that role to go through the statement of work with you, and you can answer any other questions you might have. The goal is to approve this today. The plan is to issue it on Monday, the 23rd. You will make your approval of recommendations in March, and we do have when we get to the meetings, we are going to talk about the March meeting. Okay. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Holly.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your feedback on summer 2023, as well as start thinking about summer 2024. Similar to what Mr. Mitchell shared in terms of timing, we also heard that not only from a program perspective, that approving things in March and maybe April to then turn around and start services in May was way too short of a time frame, not only for the providers and the parents, as you highlighted, but also internally for our team to get those contracts out and to do the required budget audit that we do as part of our due diligence to ensure that everything that's been requested is in line with our fiscal guidelines. To Mr. Mitchell's point about marketing, that would require a shift or a change to our fiscal guidelines. So our team will definitely work on that and bring that to December or whenever the next business meeting is. I think that's December. So because that was something that was approved and ratified by the council to ensure that they understand that the marketing dollars are no longer an allowable expense. We did have some very similar thoughts because of the use of the SAMIS system allows for this joint registration process. And the idea behind the Summer Camp Expo is to do precisely what Mr. Mitchell described, of saying CSC providing these types of summer camps, come find your summer camp that's free for you to attend. Last year, we were able to advertise, I think, with about 8 days lead time, thanks to our partners at the county, and we still had a really, really great turnout and participation by families that wanted to access those services. This time, by working with community partners, doing that advertising, we've actually already made contact with 3 of our public sector PFM news channels, whether it's Adams Radio to WTXL, Tallahassee Democrat, to share that information, and we know that we're going to have some of that coverage. So that plan is in the works, and we will make note of the fiscal guidelines. I will say that the differences between this year and last year is that we want to increase quality. That's something that we found with the programs that we funded last year. We did not mandate minimum standards. We suggested and recommended minimum standards. So what you're going to see in the scope of work as we go through it is not only are we telling them what the minimum standards are, but it's actually one of the eligibility requirements. So it can't be a 2-week fly-by-night program that doesn't have the experience in doing that. And that's something that we learned with this summer. They don't have, they're not equated with the standards that we're trying to raise. And we have to be hyper-focused again. What is it that we're trying to do in our theory of change?
So Holly, I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you because we're gonna lose our quorum at 6. So we're gonna have to move fast. We've got 2 items that we've got to cover before.
Sure. So basically I will speed it up then. The version in front of you, the timeline has to change based on your new proposed meeting schedule. So that will change. That will be a shift. The biggest piece of the difference is that we're only doing summer learning, not summer feeding. There will be a feeding component required for this. And then the elements, we pulled out elements to increase the quality. The minimum standards will be as proposed at the last meeting. 6 weeks of service to youth. A minimum of 4 days, full day, and they have to do feeding, and there has to be some sort of element of enrichment. That's the biggest difference. So it's all here. There is an evaluation protocol and assessment tool that will be requiring that they use beyond just the resiliency measure, and everything's kind of in here. It's just stronger. I guess is that the best way of wrapping it up? Okay.
All right, thank you all so very much for putting this together and giving us an opportunity to review it. I do have a couple of questions, but I do want to open it up for those of you that may have questions before I go. Any questions for the staff? Okay, I'll jump in. So I see on the schedule that you all have the capacity building, which I'm very excited to see it. I did not see anything in the statement of work that indicated that why it's being offered and who should participate in it. So I would like for there to be a sentence or two in there included that says, we're offering this is why, and why we are encouraging them to participate in the capacity building training opportunities. Because it's in the schedule, but there's nothing that explains that to them. Okay, that was number one. Number two, in the statement of work, under the very first section, under the background and rationale, so I love the data points, but there's not enough information. I mean, it just says, we want to have an impact on third grade reading, 54%. What does that mean? You know, we want an impact on eighth grade math, 29%. 29% of what? You know, so I would like for you all to expand what those data points actually mean, so it makes sense to somebody that's actually reading it. And then there were a few minor typos, but I'm sure y'all are going to catch this. So I didn't want to point
three
it.
sitting
Okay.
here.
All right, good. Okay, so just wanted to make sure y'all saw those. I think those were all that I had, because as I started reading it, there were questions that I had, but then y'all answered them later in the scope of work. So I was pleased with everything else. So those were my comments. Any others?
I do want to add, I do feel like we were rushed. I just have to bring that up, that, you know, we understand that we have things and something, you know, someone may have to leave at 6, but I just don't feel like, you know, we want to be mindful. So I'm not in my head like, oh, we want to perform, but I think we are rushed and be mindful of that.
Okay, absolutely. Do you have any questions, though, Mr. Watts?
Yeah, so Holly, I do want to go to for moving forward with this RFA and really to the last conversation about the summer 2023 update and the lessons learned. So real time, is it the intent that these things identified summer 2023 moving forward with the next, that there's somehow some type of mechanism built in now to tackle those things?
Two of the biggest pieces, and I will be succinct, is having the contract start May 1 and allows for an entire month of pre-service training that's mandatory. Not only for them to have between March and May to do their recruitment of staff, but that there's mandatory training, something that we did not, and we've actually already implemented that in our priority funding, is that they have to participate in the fiscal management training, the contract management training, and the data collection training. It's not that we offered it, but we did not mandate it, and we didn't offer it in a timely fashion. And that was on us by making the window too short between intent to award and contract execution. There wasn't enough time. We ran out of it. That was a lesson that we learned as staff, and that's why we're driving it back. This start time issue is why we're driving it back.
Take it one step further for me. So, okay, this mandatory training, right? What does that actually mean? So they have to take that training, but then what? So it's, you know, it's executed, they're operating. This CSC staff has some type of thing, but okay, go ahead.
So the pieces from our standpoint in terms of the mandatory training and accountability really comes down to Dina, Prisha, Stephanie, and myself, and we all look at kind of different aspects of it. So they go through the contract training, then they have their contract compliance. They have weekly data updates. We've now implemented open office hours for data collection, And we've only been doing it for 2 weeks now, but they're coming in every single time. They're asking the right questions. We're providing them the training. We mentioned during the summer, we provided 36 on-site visits. They didn't start though until like the end of June, once we had our full team available. That will start earlier. And then there's accountability measures and check-ins with every funded program. We also hope that by increasing the expectation of quality, that we're thinking about quality over quantity. It might be fewer programs, but are going to be higher quality programs that can hopefully serve more children, and really looking at that parity between it, as opposed to just funding anybody that hits an arbitrary number. That part of eligibility is going to be a huge component, but the accountability piece. The other thing that they have to include in their contract is what is their internal pre-service training. So say they're serving children that have special needs, or that there's certain standards associated with hosting summer camps. What is their pre-service training for their own staff? We didn't ask that question before. Now, not only are we asking it and asking them to provide us with that plan, but we're also then going to hold them accountable to look at those records. So a lot of it comes on what are the accountability measures that our team is putting into place, as well as giving them the tools so that they can be successful up front, as opposed to throwing it all at them and giving them 3 weeks to sink or swim, which it kind of felt like definitely the first year was better this year. Next year, like, we just continue to raise that bar on expectation of performance as well as what we offer them.
This is what I am extremely looking forward to, and when you all presented, so like this is great with the but I'm really looking forward to that presentation on the measurement and how you guys are assisting them at the same time, with and we're being effective.
Yeah.
So that out there. That's all I have.
Yeah. And I'll just brag on the team. They're working on kind of like their quality assurance, the way that they can monitor and evaluate, so that it is an easier way for us to report back. That may be in the system in the future. Well, baby steps. Baby steps. Yeah.
Mr. Mitchell.
Just one question, Holly, and that the word accountability. So we've run it for 2 years, and I get the fact that we are getting better as an organization. Hopefully, the folks providing services are getting better as organizations. I heard Ms. Green talk about the fact that some of them, maybe it was you, who struggled with inputting data. So we're going to require training. In this RFA, is there any sort of penalty that if they don't meet these requirements, again, that they're not entitled to funding the 4th year?
Can I comment on that, please? Because I had the exact same thought. And I wanted to bring it up because I am big on, you got to show me that this is effective. And honestly, when I started reading this, when they said that we're based on these values on the very first page, inclusive, data-driven, equitable, collaborative, and innovative. And I was like, but effective isn't there. I want to make sure that these programs are being effective, like we're seeing an improvement. I am, we're still new in this process. And I do think for the first couple of years, okay, we're going to be lenient and we're going to let you all get into the group. But I am right there with you, Mr. Mitchell. I honestly believe that and we have to determine what that time frame is. But if you can't show me growth in your assessments of these children participating in these programs, then I think you need to sit out a year before you can qualify again. I had that thought, I didn't bring it forward, but I knew exactly where you were going with that. And I do think that we should consider that, and maybe not this round, maybe the next year, because we're still fairly new. But I think that they have to show proof that their programs are growing. And if they can't give us that proof, they need to figure something out before we give them more money.
Madam Chair, may I direct you to page 20 of 43?
Yeah.
The third paragraph in the last sentence, finally, if an agency received CSC Leon funding in the past, it must submit the letter of eligibility received from CSC Leon to confirm contract compliance. That means this year, if you are out of compliance And we've offered you an opportunity to remedy that situation, and you do not take that, you will receive a letter of incompliance, or if you are eligible, I think we're going to be strength-based, you will receive a letter of you are eligible for future funding. There is a chance that programs that were funded this year will not receive that letter. Tomorrow is the
chance, there will be programs.
I was trying to feel straight face. Tomorrow,
There will be programs that will
we
not
are
receive.
working with them to be our partners in success, and we want them to be successful, but they have to be accountable. And as Ms. Green said, there will be programs from this year that will likely not receive that letter. And therefore they have to submit that letter, and it's on them in the system to upload a copy of that eligibility. So we're taking it seriously and starting this year.
Madam Chair, you're right, effective. And there's only one way we can find out if they're effective, and that's if they're in compliance with the data we asked for. And yet this matters a lot to me. These are dollars that are limited. And like I said, it seems like a lot of money. If it was in my checking account, $9 million would, whoo, you know, well, I wouldn't be here. Oh, yes,
Sure you would.
Yes, these dollars really do matter. And someone's coming to us, asking us for money. And they don't have their ducks in a row, and they didn't follow our rules. Again, the program may be amazing. I really feel weird in trusting my neighbor's dollars with those folks. So thank you, Holly. I'm glad that that's in there. I don't know. I did read it, I promise you.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Yeah.
But I didn't understand compliance completely. I didn't realize it. I didn't understand. I'll leave it right there. Ms. Cummings.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. We're consistent with Ms. Mitchell's comment about his neighbor's money. I know in the past, we've seen proposals, and when they give us their budget, the cost per child, it just different enormously with 10 different organizations of 15 different organizations. One might have a budget of 4,000 something per child, another one had 2,000, you know, we saw that. But I saw in this proposal where there's a note that says the cost per child per week cannot exceed $300 per child per week. And I think that's good because it sort of places the service providers on an equal footing, so to speak. So I appreciate staff including that amount so that we don't see inflated costs. I know we expressed concerns in the past, and we funded many of those programs that had that cost per child. And maybe one program provided something that another one didn't. So I like the fact that we say you cannot inflate it unless you're providing services for special needs children. So I appreciate you all for looking at that.
Thank you, Ms. Cummings.
I know we're on a tight time schedule, and I would add this, because on paper, I can make anything look good. I can make my program look like a gold star, right? But if we have people over quality control, they're actually going to these programs and visiting these programs and see exactly what's happening. We served 18,000 kids, and we did this and this and this, and that we are actually going and visiting, evaluating to ensure that they're doing what they say they're doing.
And are these pop-up site visits or are they always announced?
I think it's a 24-hour notice.
Because we have to give them, I'm sorry, I just jumped in. We give, in the contract, we give them 24 hours notice with a list of the things that we're going to come and look at. We actually come on site. It also requires that they show us where it's going to be and all of that. So with each one, we're getting better and better. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you all very much. Any other discussion questions?
Are you looking for a motion?
No, not yet. I need public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, it's okay. It is now time for public comment. Ms. Clay, do we have any?
On this side.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Do we have any, Ms. Cummings is able to stay, so yay. We just wanted to make that announcement. Yeah. Any public comment at this time?
There's no public comment.
No public comment. So now I am willing to entertain a motion.
Madam
and a
Chair,
second.
I will move item 10, the summer bridge funding request for applications. That's all I have to say.
With said changes.
With the recommended changes.
With the recommended
Oh, I'm sorry, with the recommended changes to be marked in here.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the table by Mr. Mitchell. We have a second by Commissioner Cummings. We will now take a vote. So all in favor say yay.
Yay.
Yes, okay, thank you. All right, so with that, the motion has passed. The RFA is approved with the recommended changes. And so so staff, Ms. Green, Holly, all right, we're asking you all to move that forward, and we know that's going to be out the door on Monday. Thank you all very much. Okay, it is time for agenda item number 11. So all of you, thanks so much for waiting patiently. We will now hear about the emergency funding request from the Children's Advocacy Center. Ms. Green. Let me turn over here.
Yes, so we received an emergency funding request from the Children's Advocacy Center. And so now I will introduce Tiffany Martin, who is the Regional Executive Director for Children's Home Society, Tallahassee and Gainesville area that operates the CAC.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing us an opportunity to share a request with you. We have a really quick video. I thought it would be better to show the video to really demonstrate specifically what a Children's Advocacy Center is. Jackie here, who also works with us with the Child Protection Team, we can talk through the differences between the two of those, and I'm hoping that this video can kind of help us through that path as we present.
A Children's Advocacy Center, or CAC, provides support.
So sorry, let me fix make mine muted so that you don't hear an echo. I do apologize if it's sorry.
A Children's Advocacy Center, or CAC, provides support to victims of child abuse. Without a CAC, an abused child may have to tell their story over and over again in settings that may be scary or where kids may think that they're in trouble. Then, families have to search around for the services their children need, all on their own. But in a CAC, a child tells their story to a trained interviewer who makes the process gentle on the child and finds the facts which are crucial to the child's case. Then, a community of professionals in medicine, law enforcement and child protective services, prosecution, victim advocacy, and other heroes work through the CAC to decide the best way to help the child. And CACs provide science-backed mental health care that heals kids from trauma and helps them reclaim their futures. This community of caring professionals rallies around the child so children have everything they need, all in one place, at the CAC. To find your local CAC or to sign up for updates, visit nationalchildren'salliance.org.
Thank you so much, Holly. So when we talk about a Children's Advocacy Center, we are, every Children's Advocacy Center is going to be in a partnership, which is MOU, with a child protection team. So previously, Children's Home Society did hold the contract for the child protection team. We no longer do. However, we are in a MOU with our local child protection team. That particular team, just as Jackie mentioned earlier, they facilitate the forensic interviews. So immediately after a family or child has experienced child abuse or neglect, they may experience law enforcement or DCF. Law enforcement or DCF immediately contacts the child protection team. They're able to do those medical interviews. They're able to do a forensic interview, which is recorded in a safe environment. And it gives that child an opportunity, just as displayed on the video, to only tell that story one time. And so after they've done the medical interview, after they have done their forensic interview, well, what really happens next with the family? That's an opportunity for them to really start and to continue that healing journey. And that's where we come in and that's what we do. I want to take a different turn because I myself, the testimonial that you see in your packets, that's actually something that happened to me. It's a part of my life story. So this work is really near and dear to me because it helped me to really conceptualize what actually happens to a young person when they experience abuse and neglect, and what options are available for their family. How do they get connected to resources when they have an instance or something that happens that totally disrupts everything that they know to be normal? And the Children's Advocacy Center, we actually serve to help support that. Recently, what we have discovered through one of our primary funders, which is VOCA, Victims of Crimes Act, which comes through the Office of Attorney General, we experience a significant cut in funding. The funding, how it gets to this VOCA pot of money, it is federal funding. And the way that the money gets into this federal pot is when we have offenders in our local communities and when they are prosecuted, the fines that they pay go into this pot of money federally, and then it gets passed down to every single state. Well, when there is a decrease in prosecutions, there is a decrease of fines, which means there is a decrease of funding going into this large pot, which is then passed down into every single state. But we know that just because there are no prosecutions or the numbers are declining, and just because there are no fines, that does not necessarily mean that things aren't happening. But what it does mean is they're probably not being reported. What it does mean is that families may not know what to do, or they just may not be sure of where to go or how to really start that journey for their family and where those resources are. And so as a result, Children's Home Society in your packet actually shows what cut we actually experience. So what we are here to ask for is an opportunity to receive some bridge funding. We are in no way asking that the Children's Service Council completely through a 3-year period add to the funding. But what we are asking is that the Children's Service Council make an investment in our community and give us an opportunity to do some long-term sustainability planning, to give us an opportunity to make sure that we keep these services here in our community. This is one of many efforts that we have engaged in both locally, also on a statewide perspective, in addition to a national perspective. The cut that we experience is not something, number one, is not related to our performance. Number two, is not related to the need. But number three, it is indeed related to federal funding that is getting passed down into the states. And so what that really means is Leon County Children's Advocacy Center is not the only advocacy center that is being impacted. We just happen to have one here in Leon County and we're advocating. There are about 26, if I'm not mistaken, children's advocacy centers across the state of Florida, and the majority of them have actually experienced cuts. So I want to kind of walk through some of the things that we have done. I've been a part of Children's Home Society a little less than 18 months. So I've had the pleasure of being here, the pleasure of looking at different opportunities to not only expand the services that we're providing, but also to continue to support them. So we've already secured in this fiscal year 2 additional funding sources with looking to the future of how do we want to grow? How do we want to expand the Children's Advocacy Center? So the United Way of the Big Bend is one of our funding sources that started this fiscal year as an opportunity to continue to support the work that we're doing. We also just recently received a grant from Sunshine Health to continue to support the work that we're doing. And I think we just recently found that out last week. And we've also have yet another funding opportunity where we've applied for some grant funding to continue to support the work that we're doing. But what else we've done, we've reached out to the North Florida Community Foundation, which is also here local, for some opportunities. We've been doing some work with Florida Blue to look for opportunities to continue to support the work that we've been doing. We have also engaged in a social organization. It's 100 Women Who Care. We're looking to partner with them as well to talk a little bit more about what do we do here? How do the Children's Advocacy Center services impact our community? And what are some ways that we can continue to partner to, again, continue to support the services that we have here? As recent as Tuesday night, I actually attended a meeting with Ashley Moody, as Attorney General Ashley Moody, in addition to another one of our funders, as an opportunity to make sure, number one, that they're completely aware of the impact being made to our local community, but also as an opportunity to say, hey, we want to collaborate and we want to explore additional opportunities together, not just locally for an impact, but also for an impact that we'll be able to make collaboratively that impact our entire state. Again, because we know that our CAC is not the only CAC that's being impacted, but we're really, really grateful that we have an opportunity to advocate here in our local community to continue the services. In addition, the video that you saw is from National Children's Alliance. So that is our national accrediting body. And the National Children's Alliance also has an awareness that there is a significant impact on children's advocacy centers and has also been doing some advocacy work on a national level to determine what work can be done from a collaborative standpoint to ensure that the services that children's advocacy centers are providing really aren't compromised. And I want to kind of transition into a little bit about my personal story to see, well, what does it look like for a family to need Children's Advocacy Center services? You see in your packet, there are two things that we consistently highlight. One is that therapeutic component of services that we provide. Another is the intake specialist, which also is that first warm welcome into our center. But that person also does a lot of integral work with connecting the families that we encounter to those key services that they're going to need so that their family unit is not experiencing a significant disruption in addition to what they've already experienced. So when someone comes into us, and in my experience, I told a trusted family member and they really did not know what to do. We were not really clear, or they weren't clear. What do I do when someone that is living in the home with me, where do I go for help? There is a component of shame. There is a component of embarrassment, and even moving beyond that to get to a point of asking for help. That can be a really big load. You have options of DCF. You have options of law enforcement. You have options of going and talk to your family. But I'm grateful that the Children's Advocacy Center is also now in our community. It's also an option. We've been here since 2017, but what does it look like when you come into our doors? You're greeted in a warm and welcoming and caring environment with someone that understands the type and the level of trauma that you've experienced. But you're also encountering a trauma therapist who is trained in specialized trauma therapy from a long-term perspective that is there, that is going to walk that young person, that is going to walk that child through that journey of experiencing the healing that we all know that they not only deserve, but also that they need. In addition to that, what we've discovered is many times we are encountering parents that have also been victims of abuse and neglect, and it has gone unreported and it has gone untreated. And that sometimes explains why their children are now coming to us. Through the Children's Advocacy Center, we get an opportunity not only to help that child through their healing journey, but if that parent is brave enough to report and to share what happened with them as a young person, then that also gives us an opportunity to serve that parent. And so as we are serving that young person and sometimes serving that parent as well, we also have an opportunity to provide support for those other key services that we know they need. I heard you guys talk about food and what type of impact you guys were able to make. Well, just consider if something happened in your family or in the family of a loved one, and the one option you had was to leave, housing is going to be something that you need. Food is going to be something that you need, and you're going to need all of those other opportunities to establish some stability. Our victim advocate of the Children's Home Society gives an opportunity for that family to establish some stability so that they can go on and continue to be successful in school. So they can continue to be successful in some of the enrichment activities that you talked about. It gives an opportunity for that family to have some stability while they are walking on their journey to really being able to heal and to become whole once again. So again, I want to say thank you all for your time. Thank you for the opportunity. And I guess we are open for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Martin. Thank you for that summary. And the video was very helpful to see that also. So council members, we now have an opportunity to discuss this proposal and to ask questions of Ms. Martin. So Mr. Hannah and then Mr. Mitchell.
First, that was very well done. That way, and you can tell how I appreciate your passion and thank you for everything that you do to help children in our community. And I know Grant County Schools have a great relationship with Children's Home Society. My father, Ted, was very involved with Children's Home Society. You do great work. And looking at this request, it's about $132,000 per year for year one. You said I believe you served 120 students last year, which is about 10 a month. And if you do the math, it's around a little over $1,100 per child with the money request. Of those, you served not only Leon County, but surrounding counties as well. So I don't know that you've broken it down by county, how much. And so this you have a clinical counselor, and then the person that's going to greet them, I guess that's part of their salaries to account for what monies were lost by the federal government decrease.
Correct.
And how do you anticipate then in the out years, a 50% decrease? You just assume that either the federal money is going to come back, or you're going to find other funding sources to kind of wean yourself off of this council for money?
Yes, and thank you for that question. One of the things, as I shared before, we've talked a lot about how do we carry the burden of sustaining this program that we see is so vital in our community. So what we believe is a responsible ask is not to say carry us for 3 years. We believe a responsible ask is because this was so severe and because it was so sudden, give us an opportunity to create a robust sustainability plan, which in turn, what we will do is we will decrease the ask from the council every single year by 50%. And that again gives us an opportunity to work with our partners, team together, and look for and explore other opportunities for funding. We are very clear, and we have been told by the Office of Attorney General as a result of meetings due to finding out about this, that we know that we will experience additional cuts in next fiscal year. So we are prepared for that, no problem. We believe in the services and we believe in our community, and we're going to move forward if given the opportunity to continue to provide these services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
And Ms. Martin, I agree with the superintendent. It was a great presentation, and the program seems like a great program and an important program. Here's where I'm struggling.
Okay.
You've been around since 2017. I know you've only been there at 18 months, but the program's been around 2017. That's 6 years.
Right.
You talked about a sudden decrease in funding. So the federal fiscal year starts October. So that tells me that it's either like the federal funding, someone had to know that the federal funding was being cut a year ago. It makes its way down into the state appropriation, and the Office of the Attorney General, even with federal dollars, has to be appropriated. That ended in May. Here we are in October, October October 19th, and at least as it's been related to me, this is sort of do or die by October 31st. I don't struggle with the program at all. So all the wonderful things on the program, good. I do struggle with funding a program and an entity who's been in existence for 6 years, who's known that this funding is going to be reduced, and it's really not sudden. I mean, it's sudden in the sense of 6 years in the last year, but you had enough time to go out. For example, you got Sunshine. Sunshine's a wonderful organization. Centene owns them. They serve Florida very, very well. Is the Sunshine funding their grant? Is that in your funding request? In other words, you're asking for $132,000 overnight from Children's Services Council. One, I'm not sure that if I look at specifically what the Children's Services Council is allowed and supposed to fund, that this fits there. But I don't know what the grant you got from Sunshine was.
Okay.
Do you know?
When you say you don't know what it was, can you clarify?
You said on Tuesday, I think you said you just.
We recently, yes, and thank you for your questions and give me an opportunity to clarify. So when I say sudden, I mean that the severity of our cut, that was really sudden. And so you are correct. We did as an organization have an awareness that there was going to be some cut in funding. We have another funder, Florida Network of Children's Advocacy Centers, who also serves as an association for us as well. Through communication and our partnership with them, we knew that we were going to experience a cut. We, as in every single children's advocacy center in the state of Florida, would be on point to receive some type of impact as a result of funding. Number one, from FNCAC, the Florida Network of Children's Advocacy Centers, and number two, from VOCA. And so what we did not know was the severity of the cuts that we would experience. So that indeed was sudden. And so when we say $162,000 experience or cut, that is really sudden. And that can be extremely debilitating to a program.
And so was that you?
We, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm more than welcome to kind of look this up for you later, we received an award letter either late August or early September. Immediately, what we did was, number one, verify that what we saw was accurate. Number two, our next step was to request a meeting with the Office of Attorney General to get a little bit more information about, can you really explain this to us? Let's kind of walk through what this looks like, not only for us locally, but again, from a statewide perspective, because again, it gives us that opportunity to see what other options do we have? What other opportunities do we have to collaborate? And so you mentioned, other funding, specifically, I heard you mention Sunshine. We got funding from Sunshine Healthcare.
Right.
And so there was a funding opportunity. And again, like I shared before, just in my time here, it was very clear that there are many opportunities to not only expand the work that we're doing, but also to increase the scope, more specifically to engage in prevention work. So applying, one of the things that we did, we applied for United Way funding, again, in Sunshine Health. So again, this gives us opportunity to feed into our sustainability, but it just so happens that as we are receiving award letters and as we are getting new funding to support the Children's Advocacy Center, we're also being made aware of cuts that are not specifically impacted or influenced on a statewide level, but are being passed down to the federal level. So again, I do understand your perspective about it's not sudden, and what you are saying in the fact of timing, you are correct. We did have an awareness that we were going to experience a cut. However, we were not aware that it would be to the severity of what we actually experienced. And so the reason that we submitted the budget was to give an opportunity to actually see those key areas that cut really impacted. And so we know 160 is very different from 40. which it may be a lot easier to recover from that. But again, I really do appreciate your question.
Okay, and please know this, and Madam Chair, if it's okay. Again, this is not about the program and the value of the program and the value of the Children's Home
Right.
Society. I support the Children's Home Society personally, I do. This is about an organization that's been in existence for 6 years. Ms. Martin, again, not all of what you said about working with people, collaboration in the future, and reaching out to the Attorney General's office, all of that is really good.
Right.
But I want to say, again, the federal budget came down almost actually a year ago. I could have told you in looking at the Office of the Attorney General's budget in May, that's how the appropriations process works, what the dollar amount was. And so I think to myself, how about it? We as a council, me as one member of the council, has to weigh emergencies that are going on in this community right now.
Mhm.
And each one of the requests that would come in for true emergencies for housing, emergencies for a CAC, an emergency for food, are all very worthwhile. But we've never given any of them an opportunity to come in and talk to us about federal funding that has been slashed. And I struggle with the process, not the value of your program. And I struggle with others in this community, specifically Leon, and I know Children's Home Society serves a larger area than Leon, and I know that it would be a violation for us to fund anything outside of Leon. But I feel like, if we fund this the way you're asking, not going through the normal process that others who are facing critical and emergency-like situation are facing, that we're going to see emergency requests every time, and there's going to be, people perhaps not as good at making a public presentation as you are, Ms. Martin, because it really is moving. But we'll find ourselves sort of searching for funds, because all of the needs are real and they're worthwhile to fund. And so the final question for you, and the Sunshine Health, again, owned by Centene, an amazing organization. Full disclosure, many years ago, I represented them to get them here in Florida. I love what they do and the communities that they serve. How much did they give the Children's Home Society for the CAC?
Okay, thank you, and great question. We actually applied for $15,000. We were awarded $4,000 of those 15.
And are there any others, like you listed several? Is there a total that you've received from any other organizations since you put in this request to the Children's Services?
No. And a large part of that is contracts and time, which I'm sure you understand based on what you just shared with representing Sunshine Health. That is really timing. And I want to go back to a few things that you said. And again, I do want to say, I really do appreciate your line of questions, because this is public and it gives us an opportunity to see what the community's perspective may be about what we're doing. So again, I really do appreciate that. I want to make sure that I'm clear about what you're asking. You mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said the way that you are asking. And from what I understand you to say, you want to make sure that what we are asking and what we're asking this board to do and what you're going to decide publicly is something that is done in integrity, but also something that is done that honors the taxpayer dollars. Am I understanding it correctly?
No, in fairness
Okay.
to organizations like the Children's Home Society, who have programs like the CSC, who are not being given an opportunity to come forward and talk about the importance of the emergency situation that they're facing.
Mhm.
They're required to go through, they have been required to go
Okay.
through either an RFA, an ITN, an RFP process, and this, it didn't.
Right.
And this is last minute. By the way, emergencies happen and last minute emergencies happen. The reason I made the comments I made at the beginning with timing is this really isn't last minute. Like, where were you in March and April and May when the state budget was being closed down and you would have known about your appropriation? That then gives the whole community of Leon who are serving homeless and hungry and not ready for kindergarten, the same opportunity to seek, $250,000 to get them over a difficult spot.
Right.
That's really my only point.
Okay.
Not anything to do with the value of your program, which I'm a dad. I like this. I really am struggling with this. A member of your board came and said, "Are you having fun?" I'm like, "Yeah, I told you the services council. I don't like nights like this,
Right.
Because I don't want to say no, but I don't know how I can say yes because I'm essentially saying no to other really good programs that there's not going to be that money left for them."
Right. Right. And again, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, thank you because I do care about our reputation. And we would never want to do anything that compromises both our reputation and our ability to really serve our community in good faith. And trust me, I hear exactly what you're saying. And again, I just want to reiterate, you are absolutely correct. We were not completely unaware. And I would be being dishonest if I said that we were. We were not unaware. What we did not know was the impact. We did not know that. And that has to come directly from our funder. The funder has the ability to decide the methodology for how they're going to roll out that impact across the state of Florida. That we have absolutely no influence on. So again, when I say sudden, we did not have the ability to control nor to influence that. So again, we did know, and there was an awareness, we will receive a cut. Again, what we did not know was the severity of that cut. And also, I totally agree with what you said. We are not asking through a formal opportunity, but trust me, if there was a formal opportunity aligned with our ask, we would be first in line to ask, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, of course. Ms. Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll be brief.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Martin, for coming to speak to us today. And I assume these are supporters and members of your staff. And it's no doubt what you all do for our children. Abused children, neglected children. It's a great service. It's very well needed. I think the statistics show all the great work that you all do. But what I'm about to say doesn't have anything to do with your work or with the fact that you're before us asking on an emergency basis for funding. Now, the Children's Services Council, we have criteria, but basically what you're asking for is a non-competitive grant because it's not in response to an RFP, ITN, anything of that nature. You're asking for a non-competitive grant. Now, we have criteria for non-competitive awards up to $15,000. We don't have criteria, if I'm correct, for the recipient to apply for a non-competitive award in the amount that you are asking for. Okay. And that's not your fault. We don't have that established. Perhaps this might be a wake-up call. We might need to do our bylaws committee or just our governance committee, establish some criteria for emergency situations. Non-competitive situations up to a certain amount, but we don't have that in place. And so I'm concerned about the council being arbitrary, capricious. If this award is granted based on no standards at all that we have put in place.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we have other nonprofits coming back next month. At some point, we'll run out of money. So we would be forced to say no to them, but with no established criteria in place. Of course, we're on the council and we are responsible for maintaining the public finance and maintaining the public trust. And so as a council member, I don't think I could just arbitrarily say no to this group, yes to that group without something in place to judge it, measure it, do that. And it might very well be some measurements to determine the emergency nature of it. I sat on a board that received VOCA money, Legal Services of North Florida. So I'm sure they're adversely impacted as well. But I'm concerned more with the process, the procedure, the perception from our board as council members, and certainly in protecting the public's tax dollars. We just have to have something in place, I believe, Madam Chair, in order to scrutinize requests like this. This might be a wake-up call to us. Who knows? We might be able to put something in place, this year, next 30 days, the next 60 days, and then against that criteria, I would be willing to measure your request, even though I know it's a serious request. And I know the services that you all provide for our children are very valuable, needed services. Okay. When we had our needs assessment report on what the needs were in the community, and I know this area is important, but it wasn't really right up there as some of the primary needs in our community, and probably because you all are doing such a great job in dealing with our children that are abused and neglected. So that would be another concern for me as well, which means if we establish some criteria, we would, in my opinion, have to look at those particular areas that were not cited as crucial areas when we had the needs assessment done, that this is not an area that the Children's Services Council needs to zero in on right now. And like I say, because of groups like your group.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's pretty much what we're saying, because right now, if I voted for it, it would be haphazard, in my opinion. No standards whatsoever. No criteria. I couldn't support my vote to the taxpayers whose money we're taking for the Children's Services Council.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think at this point, it's just premature, in my opinion, because we don't have anything in place. And you understand, we're a new council. We have some, as we go, we've established certain ground rules. We've established certain criteria. We've got the rules for up to 15,000. And there is a deadline for that application as well, but Madam Chair, I'm struggling with this. I know it's a need, but I don't want to just, I don't think I in good conscience could support the request right now. If we get something in place.
I hear you. I do have a question. I don't see any other cards. For Ms. Green, what was the window? What was the time frame for the CSC funding?
Well, the timeframe, so for the CSC funding, the application opened on October 1 and it will close on October 31. The problem though is, I don't know if it's a problem, but the specification is that the nonprofit that applies cannot have an operating budget of more than $100,000.
Okay. And that would preclude her from applying for that. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Please, go ahead.
As the commissioner was speaking, I wanted to obviously share her concerns. So, but I also think to myself, okay, we have this CSC funding, and I get the criteria. We have a request that's made that exceeds the concept behind the CSC funding. You know, I listened to Ms. Martin and I wrote his name down, Detective Kelly. There's no doubt that what you guys are doing is right? This is not about that. I'm sure that the folks at Centene, or as you call them, Sunshine Health, sat there struggling with your $25,000 request and said, we don't have enough to go around, you know, we'll give them 4,000. I would be completely open. This speaks as much, Ms. Martin, to your comments, and I think the importance of protecting children. I'm not quite sure it fits perfectly into the CSC. Really am not. But I'd be open, and boy, how I wish Mr. Rowe was feeling better. It was here. But Sika, you know where I'm kind of heading is like, no to 132,000, no to the second and third year. But yes, to a limited amount of funding that helps you get to what your ultimate goal is. That would be something that, you know.
With the caveat, I want to make sure that the dollars, if we do allocate any dollars for this, because my heart goes out to you too. It really does. And I want to fund you. I do. And I'm trying to figure out, you know, what can we do? But I need to make sure that whatever dollars we give you only goes to children in Leon County. And not because I don't have a heart for the kids in the other counties. That's just how we're mandated. So if we do allocate, one of the stipulations will be that you are able to prove to us that those dollars are only to serve children that are in Leon County. And I'm sorry to put those limitations, but that's something that I would want us to.
By the way, we would be violating.
Right, yeah. Yeah. This Cummings is,
I certainly would like to give them every quarter that they want, but I'm just a stickler about criteria, something in place. If we want to, and I know it's needed, if we want to grant any funding, I still think we need to have something in place so that next week, a week after, when another nonprofit comes, we've got that criteria. And I recognize that they wouldn't fit within the CSC criteria that we have, as the executive director says, because I know your budget is more than $100,000 a year. So that's the limit that we put on it. I wouldn't have a problem, Madam Chair, if we wanted to expedite some criteria and some procedure, get it approved by the board, that would go above the $100,000 for funding. And that way, I've got something in place. I've got a measurement tool. And if another entity comes next month, and next week, I can use that same measurement tool to either fund them, you see what I'm saying, fund them or not fund them. But I wouldn't be willing to just say, I want to give you some money right now just to help you bridge the gap. If I don't have something as a council member to drive and direct my decision to give you money. And like I said, that criteria could be established.
So do I hear a motion from you to not fund, because we need to get a motion to,
I don't want to make a motion to not fund.
Okay.
I like one. Mr. Mitchell is on.
Right, but so I'll make the motion to deny the request that was made. If it passes, I would like to make a motion that we figure out how to only on emergency basis that where an organization can demonstrate an emergency. If that organization has an annual budget of over 100,000 and again can demonstrate an emergency that is acknowledged by the council, that they would qualify for CSC funding up to $15,000.
Okay.
So I'm happy to make it as one common motion, just one total motion, but my motion would be to deny their request of 100, their request, period. And then they.
So in the agenda just says consideration of action.
Right.
So you don't have to do a motion to deny anything. You
Okay.
just do a motion for what you.
correct, I think that's.
So then, you know what? I am so glad you mentioned this because I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. What's your motion?
I would like to make a motion that the Children's Services Council on an expedited, in an expedited manner, establish criteria for organizations whose annual budget is over $100,000, where they qualify for CSC funding, which is up to $15,000, if they can demonstrate to the satisfaction of a majority of the council that they are experiencing an emergency situation.
We have a motion on the table. Do I hear a second to that motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay,
For discussion.
just second it for discussion. All right, so my only question is, on an expedited process. So given the fact that we've already discussed that we plan to not have a meeting in November.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So the expedited process would be maybe ask the staff to come to our December meeting with a process for us to consider and vote on, which will mean that they will not be eligible to begin that process until December. And I just wanted to make sure, do you not understand what I'm saying, Holly?
No, I understand.
No. If you're in discussion, just
Yeah.
a couple of things.
Okay.
So budgetarily, we have allotted for this fiscal year, 600,000, 150 each quarter for SIPs. So with this motion, we would have to go back and do some budget realignment.
Yes.
Or it could reduce
Or it could come from, and this, by the way, I would encourage any organization that comes here to have reserves. We certainly have reserves, right? We have reserves, remember, for emergency situations. This would be the first one. When we contemplated it as a hurricane. Unfortunately, we have man-made hurricanes that occur in households with families all the time. And so I'm okay accepting the nature of this as an emergency, much like a hurricane, and we have it in our reserve funds. So I think we won't have to change the CSC funding at all.
Ms. Cummings.
Because we're considering criteria for entities with the budget over $100,000. would we want to adopt that same $15,000 limit? Because we're looking at entities with more capacity.
Yes, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
For me, that would make me more comfortable, is if somebody wanted to come in with a $136,000 request, I would want them to go through a competitive procurement, and the SIPs is not.
Okay.
And that's, I love
It's kind of quasi.
yeah, it is clear. I don't know, I assume everybody in this room is on the side of give us the damn money, right? So I look at all of you to say, there's not a person up here that doesn't believe in what you're doing and what you're here to advocate for. Not a single person. But every time we say yes to an organization, we're saying no to another organization. And these chairs will empty out tonight and they'll be replaced by equally as well-intended, wonderful people who have an equally as important emergency that needs to be met. And that's what I'm struggling with. Again, I believe in the Children's Home Society. And while I did not know about this program, I'm glad you guys have something to do with it, because it's gotta be part of, our community. So I, Madam Chair, all I'm trying to say is I'd like to give this organization $15,000 based on their request. And I don't know how to do it.
Your motion's on the table. We got it. We understand that.
But just on point, Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I appreciate Mr. Mitchell, but I'm just struggling with, we've got two different groups. We've got SIPs criteria for entities whose budget is less than $100,000.
It's capped at 15K.
It's capped at 15. Okay, this is non-competitive funding. Okay, and I just think it should be a distinction in the limit if you're dealing with entities whose budget is over $100,000.
What do you think is reasonable?
Well, if entities who have a budget less than 100,000, and I believe all entities that applied for the SIPs funding, that they submitted budgets that were really less than what, 30, 40,000, some had $10,000, $3,000 budget. I'm looking at the amount that they are asking for, and I know they're not gonna turn down 15,000, but it's nowhere near what they are requesting to help them out of the emergency situation. So what I'm saying, Mr. Mitchell, is if we are going to establish criteria to address emergency situations, I think it should be more than the 15,000 that we will give entities who are not in an emergency status.
So I'm sorry, I just want to comment on one thing. The issue that I'm having with calling it SIPs with people who have a higher cap is that with the SIPs, it takes a long time for them to get the money. So they don't get it right away. If it's an emergency, it's an emergency.
Absolutely.
If I have an emergency, I can't wait till January, February, March to get the money. So what I'm thinking is that if we are going to come up with a new process for emergencies, for organizations with a budget above 100K, then we need to be able to put our process together that expedites that funding. And I'm not arguing what the dollar amount would be, but I think the process needs to be, you can get your money next month because it's an emergency. And then I think we need to come to consensus on what that dollar amount cap would be.
And perhaps on point,
Sure.
sorry. And perhaps if we work on some criteria, then as a council or as a committee, then we can discuss and come to some consensus on when the money, if approved, when the money can be given to the entity. We might not want it to take 30 days or next month. It might be within 5 days, within 10 days.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. And I think at committee, we can discuss, and we don't have to do it today. We can discuss the limits, and we don't have to call it it doesn't have to be the same criteria that we already have in place. Because if Mr. Mitchell's motion is for an emergency situation, I think the criteria that we adopt, the step by step that we adopt, has to address it as an emergency situation. So by default, I think the criteria is going to be different. It's going to be more favorable to the entity that has shown that they truly have an emergency situation.
Okay,
Can I ask?
please.
This is a card of superintendent.
I don't even remember what the motion was at this point, honestly.
I will repeat it.
So we talked and talked and talked, and I'm confused. I'd like to get through the motion. At some point, I guess we're gonna revisit requests like this.
Yeah.
Okay, I think at the end of the day, they probably should have been told this request isn't even an option, you know, so you're coming here and I love the Children's Home Society, but it's not even allowed for, right? That's basically what we're telling them. And so I think if we want to open up the discussion later, we open up the discussion later, but let's don't, they're sitting here and
Okay, well, we do have a motion on the table. We're in the middle of the discussion, so we will take a vote on that motion. And any other discussion on that motion? Okay.
Madam
Oh, okay. Before you comment, I do want to let Mr. Watts speak.
This is outside from the inquiry, but I want to go back, Commissioner Cummings, and ask something because it really did register. This is outside. This is for anybody. So like three things. It really struck a nerve about having a process just in general, right? And so I guess from a standpoint of logistics, were you suggesting that typically we need to have something built into actual bylaws language of what determines an emergency, but
it wouldn't be. On points, wherever we have our six criteria, I don't think it's in the bylaws. It's just part of what our governing procedures.
Okay.
I think the criteria should be there, not necessarily in the bylaws.
Okay.
But if we want it in the bylaws, I don't see why.
I think it's the same where, the same place we have the criteria for the SIPs.
All right. And then you said something else, Commissioner Cummings, along the lines of two, even determining, I'm not going to remember exactly, but even around the specific, not, you use the word accountable, but measuring whatever the request is based on what the current operating or funding, like how do you validate? Maybe that's like paraphrasing.
Right, and I think we could build all that in to whatever we adopt, whatever criteria we adopt for emergency, because it's gonna happen again.
You know something, I'm sure I do really to the commissioner's point. Let's say this was a hurricane, a real hurricane. And we needed, and let's say Children's Home Society came here as part of a hurricane relief initiative in a real emergency that we contemplated when we put those in reserves, that I don't know that we have criteria by which we could spend money right now. So it's, so we sort of do need to, and it really shouldn't have anything to do with their annual budget as to what the request is or what is granted. It should be based on what the request itself is. This is, and this is the only reason I said it, this is quite unusual. And I don't want to send the message that, hey, just come to us with a really good program that serves a really important need in our community with an emergency and ask the council to fund it because it involves children. That's really what I was.
And the other thing, again, outside of this, and then, so I hear like the 15,000, let's say it was any organization that asks for a certain amount, right? 200,000, and we could only give them 15. I don't know that we want to go down that avenue, right? If you're asking for this amount, like will that 15 actually serve or even make an impact to the big picture. So how do you, if we even go down that route, just saying bigger picture, how do we even?
And that's why I brought up the Sunshine Health request for 25. I don't think they turned down the 4 because they only got 4. Organizations have to weigh the resources they have available to them and the anticipation that additional resources would be requested in the future. And I think we can all, agree that General Moody and the Office of the Attorney General, I promise you, and Mr. Watts, your agency, there are other organizations out there that can find funding, and I know Ms. Martin, I heard her presentation. That's a smart lady standing there. She's already working. So I don't have a problem not funding the full request. Anyhow, I've got my motion.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we do need to move on. So thank you all for the discussion. We do have a motion on the table. But before we do that, we're open for public comment. So I will allow you all to comment. Then we need to vote on that motion. Oh, do you want to comment?
Yeah,
before?
I need to make
Okay,
a couple
please, go
comments.
ahead.
So number one, I want to be clear that that this, with what Ms. Martin said, there are other CSCs that have gone, CACs that have gone to their CSCs to request the emergency funding. So I do want to say that, number one, hang on, let me see my thought. I had it sitting right there. That's okay. That I wanted. Oh, no, I got it. It came back. It came back. Hold it. Came back. So number one, there are other CACs that went to their CSCs, and I think I sent y'all that information, number one. Number two, I think that developing an emergency process would be an emergency process. It would not be contingent on whether the program, the organization is $100,000 or more. Number two, number three, I think this is just the thing that we discuss as a council during the time when we have our programming discussions, so that we come up with criteria. And then number four, other CSCs have emergency funding. It is a pot that they dedicate to emergency funding. They have criteria that is set up, and organizations can come and apply for it. What I don't want is for us to get into the weeds, given that we've got a request. So I just wanted to be clear that they did have the ability to come to us because that precedent had been set. And that is why I honored the request to come.
Oh, just on
Last comment. Okay, all right.
And I love that Director Gray, because there are other Children's Services Council that already have established criteria for emergency. We can get copies of what they have, modified if we want to. It's not like we have to start from scratch.
Okay.
Maybe not reinvent the wheel, but I think that will be helpful.
Perfect. Okay, I do want to close down this motion though. So I will allow for public comment and then we'll move on, please. I'm sorry. You have a card. It's like.
I have one public
Okay.
comment, Ms. Jackie Sanderford Gone.
That's right, everybody. It's a long name, don't worry about it.
Miss Jackie.
Tell everybody, thank you, Jackie. It's long and I get it. And again, I'm with the child protection team. When the child protection team split from the CAC and from Children's Home Society and University of Florida to the child protection team over in January of this year, CPT and UF maintain a working relationship with the CAC. And we do refer to the CAC when necessary for services that we don't provide. And I just want to be clear, because since that separation occurred in January of 23, there's been a lot of community misunderstanding, misconception, and confusion, and that we're still the same entity, and that we're still the same agency as in one, and we're not. So it's not the University of Florida Child Protection Team that is asking for any funds. And I just want to be sure that that is clear. The Child Protection Teams too got the same cut that the CAC got. So all of the child protection teams, all 22 of them across Florida, also got that same cut from VOCA. Okay, so it was a big cut, like she said. It was a cut that cut deep. with all of us across the whole state. It cut deep. I just want to be sure that it is understanding because it's been a community, and rightfully so. It's been a misunderstanding within the community that we're still one agency. And I just want to be sure you know we're not one agency. The CPT does provide forensic interviews. We do provide specialized interviews, medical exams, psychologicals, all of those exams are all of those services. And then we do refer to the CAC when necessary for counseling and for advocacy services. Okay. We are in the process as of July 1 to begin a sexual abuse treatment program. So we are starting that as of July 1 as well. But I want it clear, it's not the University of Florida Child Protection Team that is requesting funding.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's go back to the motion on the table. And I think I have this right, Mr. Mitchell, so correct me if I'm wrong. But the motion was for the council to develop an expedited process to fund up to $15,000 for emergencies for organizations that have a budget over $100,000. That's currently the motion that's on the
Can
table.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
would he be willing to remove
I
that 15,000
sure would.
and just say yes?
All right,
Just
And we'll deal with that.
a process without a
and are you still capping at $15,000?
No, he's
Still,
not.
okay, all right, he's removing that. Okay, so the amended motion is to establish an expedited process to fund emergencies for organizations. Just any emergency that comes to the council, we establish what that process would be. Okay, that's the amended budget that's on the table. All right, let's take a vote on that. Ms. Clay, will you please do a roll call vote for me, please?
Mr. Watts,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
yes.
Ms. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond, Dr. Glenn.
Yes. All right, so the motion passes. All right, but I do want to say to you all, this is why I don't like being on this council, I'll be honest with you, because of meetings like this. It is so hard for us to have these types of things. I honestly read this and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to give them every ounce of this money for all 3 years. I read your testimonial. I had no idea it was you, but my heart went out, to the individual, and I can only imagine children that go through that. However, I do promise you that we will establish this process, and we welcome you all that once it's established to apply for whatever that may be. So I don't have a mirror ball. I don't know what that process will be, but we do want to support you all in the work that you're doing. But we have to understand what we're doing, because the minute you leave, there will be 90 other organizations in here, all with emergencies of significant amount of dollars. And we've got to be able to have a process in place to make that happen. So thank you. And thank you to the staff that did come. So to be continued, there is a process to happen.
Can I ask
Yes,
a question, Ms.
please.
Martin? Ms. Martin, if let's say that you mentioned Florida Blue, I mean, there's a lot of organizations. Let's say somebody did want to provide funding specific to this request, to the CAC and filling a gap. How would they do that?
Call me. Call me. Short answer.
Okay, I'm ringing. How does someone do it? Is there a restricted, if they went to your website, is there the ability to contribute restricted dollars restricted to this purpose on the website?
Yes,
Call the
absolutely.
CAC somewhere on there?
Let me tell you exactly how you may do that in case you want to share with someone.
You are, and
Yes.
whoever's listening.
Yes, if you go to our website, it's www.chsfl.org. All the way to your right in the corner, there is a button that says donate.
I'm sorry, repeat the.
www.chsfl.org. Once you get on the website, if you look over to your right in the corner, there is a button that says donate.
But there's a button that shows us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're gonna get there, right there. So you select what you want to give.
Right.
And you see where it says, please direct my support. You click that button, it says Big Bend, Tallahassee area. Once you select that and you kind of go through the steps, there's going to be another option that gives you the ability to write a note. You then write that note, something that someone in the room said, we want to ensure that these dollars are going to fund children in Leon County. If you only want your dollars to fund children in Leon County, you can say that in the notes here. CAC, Leon County only. And we will certainly honor that request. Right here, CAC, Leon County only.
Very nice.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. All right. Okay, let's move forward on the agenda, everybody. We're on agenda item number 12. So let's discuss future council dates. So as we discussed earlier, I will be canceling the November 16th meeting. So the next time we are scheduled to meet will be on December the 21st. Is there anything that you would like to add to that, Ms. Green, with regards to any other meeting?
Yes, so in order to honor what we think is going to be our new meeting schedule, we need to move the March meeting to March 7th. Can our council members here check your schedules now to see if you can do March 7th?
I can, I did check already, so that works for me.
Is that okay? It's before spring break. Okay. So if we move that one to March 7th, that keeps us from having to do an ad hoc meeting in February. So we will go ahead and make that change. And that's it.
Okay. We will also have committee reports during our next December meeting. We will have the FL class investment resolution deposit council funds. And then we will have the first quarter 2023 SIPS funding approvals. So that's everything that we currently have on the agenda for our December 21st meeting. We do know that's right before Christmas, but it's already noticed. So that's when we'll have to meet. Any other items for the December meeting? So now I am ready for member comments. Do we have any member comments?
I have one.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is the number of council members, and the process that the county used to make the 5 gubernatorial recommendations that led to appointments, that was flawed from the very beginning, which gave the county assigned expiration dates to our appointments when it's not the county that makes the appointments. Therefore, they conflicted with the governor's office. The governor's office is, I think, sitting there looking like, look, we want to give you your 10. Remember how quickly they went through the process of appointing the 10 or the 5 to begin with. I think, and you know, Commissioner Cummings, it's perfect that you're here because I think it would be a good idea if the county, we have 3 vacancies, 2 of which don't have a person in it, is as long as the governor doesn't appoint someone to a term that is up, the person can continue to serve in that position. But there are 3 vacancies or 3 openings for council members. It would be a good idea if the county would advertise again, just withdraw what they sent, because, for example, my appointment's not up for another year. However, my name was submitted by, look at this, I have my favorite superintendent, my favorite commissioner, by my favorite commissioner. Well, it's so messed up that it would be just a good idea if you guys would just submit to the governor's office 9 names. They can be the identical names, but just there are our chair, her position was, or her term was up last December. Liza, hers was up last December, and Ms. Connor, hers wasn't up, but she resigned. So those are the 3. And
Okay, are you saying,
yes, Dr. Glenn's is.
Mine was.
what's up in December?
I didn't know because my I was told something different.
They flipped, so.
Okay, so what I would have to do is talk to the county administrator
Yes.
and make sure this is on our agenda
Right, and
for
it's,
November.
right, and it just advertise to the community. By the way, there are a lot of people out there who have an interest in serving.
Mhm.
There were people who submitted, so that's,
So we would have time now to advertise.
you would just tell people, come one, come all, just like you did before when Dr. Glenn, myself,
And we would nominate
you would
9 people.
Yes, ma'am.
now. Okay,
3 for each of those positions.
right, okay. I'll do that. I'll talk to
Okay.
county
Yeah.
administrator tomorrow.
And we'll actually have 10 council members very quickly.
Are they even looking at anything in the governor's office?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just
Yes.
wanted to make sure that that's something.
I've to say, I've had numerous conversations, and they're like, we don't even know what to do, like, what? You know,
Okay.
So sending them nominations would trigger them to do whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you. Any other member comments?
Madam Chair, this is just,
Yep.
I just think if we have people speak, and I think our council will tell us they need to come to the podium, name and address, instead of, I don't want us to get where, because we're broadcasting, they can't see anybody and they can't
That's
see
true.
in here, and they need to
That's true.
Thank you.
name this. And I think our attorney would have probably said that if he was here.
Yeah.
I just, moving forward, we need to ensure that they're doing that.
Thank you. And this is the appropriate meeting to remind us of that because it's our annual meeting where we reviewed our processes. Thank you very much for that. All right, any other member comments?